Beautiful sunny day in Doha. The stormtroopers are out in celebration of May the 4th. Uh, let's make it happen. Lots to talk about. Lots going on. Time for the Qeason. Playoff edition. All right, let's get her started. So, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back.
It's been a bit of a hiatus for us two, Greg and Beggs here, with the Qeason podcast. What number is this? Do we know?
This is
10?
number 10. Yeah, it is 10. Even 10.
We've had a bit of a break since the last time we did anything. I think the last time we did was an actual peanut gallery type thing at the rink, based on one of our games, just to give you guys a better perspective of what it actually is like to be there at the rink and to mock people and critique people and admire people's skill and give you a little bit of perspective of what it's like ringside when we play and everything about it. So we're back here at Derek's humble abode.
And in between, I tried to do a live because I want to maybe see if we do it with the playoffs, but I tried to do a live one set up, but the sound didn't come out well. But during that, this is really interesting. I met these two full abaya wearing women that were sitting beside because my camera wasn't on. She goes, "Oh, your camera's on." And then I was talking to them a little bit, and I said, "Is this your first time?" She goes, No, we come to these games." And I find out these two abaya wearing Qatari women, I think they're Qatari.
It could be any.
Come to every one of our games. They come to our games. They watch our games. They know the schedule, and they come and watch our games, and it's the best. So it makes me really happy that these ladies like hockey enough to come and watch it.
We have our own QIIHL Desert Buck Bunnies apparently.
Yeah.
So it's always good to have some spectators around, and we're glad that they enjoy the games. It was unbeknownst to me. Beggs was telling me about it today. I had no idea. And he said that they've been following the games religiously for the last few weeks anyway.
Yeah.
And we're glad that they enjoy them. We're glad to.
So next time, ladies, I'm going to find out
You're
your
not
names and
entertained.
stuff if anybody knows. But yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go on to where were you? Tell us about how was your trip to Vegas?
Well, last week I made a trek to the city of Sin. Is it?
Yes.
Never Sleeps. No, that's New York. The city of Sin is Las Vegas, Nevada, and we had. Catter Canucks Alumni Hockey Club, basically a group of us guys headed by Ronnie McClellan. Cheers to Ronnie Mac for getting us all together over about span of 20 years. I've been here since 2003. So basically what it was is alumni bunch of guys that have played here over the years, various tournaments and in the queue itself. And Ronnie and some other guy, all the guys actually are either, other than myself and Vlad Barty. Vlad joined us from Slovakia, his native Slovakia, and I came from Doha. Everyone else is residing, working, living in North America, either Canada or United States. So a little bit of an easier commute for those guys to get down to Vegas or get up from Vegas, wherever you're. Some guys came up from Houston, some guys are in Calgary, Ontario, San Fran, West Coast, BC. So we had.
It's pretty cool to know that there's this alumni.
Something that was a long time coming, and I think all the guys have heard of it. Some of them have seen the episode, some have watched religiously. But
nice.
It well received, and they said keep it going. So we're going to keep it going, and
so we'll move on to this season, the latest season.
Yeah.
So before we talk about the playoffs and stuff, we're going to put up the scoring leaders. Yes, they won it. Finnegan snuck it. It's hard to tell because the scores are not all there and stuff. So you don't know what the last game's goals and stuff. But on paper, Finnegan second, Will third, I think, and then kind of we'll go down the list. Maybe shout out to the assist guys. We'll highlight all the different things.
And for those of you probably pundits about the stats and stuff, and there was a bit of a technical glitch about a week ago. Some the database I think was down. We lost some of our data, so I think that's still a work in progress to get the final tallies, but I think they're fairly accurate as far as the positions go. The final totals on the points might be distributed a little bit differently by the end of this podcast. I don't know. Those things happen throughout the course of a year, and it's not uncommon for us to lose the data sometimes. So I think with Vince is on it. Vince Stack is our website administrator. I think Vince is doing due diligence to get that corrected. I think it's pretty much right there.
As long as you get my goal against the Oil Kings, that's all that matters. So how do we end up as a league? We've got the Oil Kings are on top, followed by the Ice Cats in second, us, the Desert Heat, in third, Silver Surfers in fourth. Dune Bashers are sitting these playoffs out, helping out with the reffing and stuff. But we'll look through all the points and everything. How do you think overall it went?
It went good overall. I think the parity in the league is very good this year. I mean, I don't want to sound like a Swami in prediction-wise. Like I sort of saw it playing out exactly how it did in the regular season. I mean, everything is up in the air for the playoffs, which start tomorrow. But I did see the Kings probably finishing it first at the beginning of the year. I think if you go back and run a little clip, I think, Derek, that might be apropos. You go back and say, here's what Gregor said on week one. And I think that
prognosticator.
Prognosticator, Swami, whatever you want to call me. I think I maintained that throughout the early part of the year, that the Kings would be in the driver's seat for most of the year, which they've continued to be, and they secured first place. So they're one seed. And I did think, I said, and we both maybe agreed on this as well, that the Cats would probably be sitting there in second, and we would probably be third, and then it was a toss-up who would get the fourth and final playoff position.
I think in the beginning of the season I had the Surfers as like maybe never winning a game, but they done well. They beat us up a couple of times,
so I think the only race was for the last week or so was who was going to finish in fourth to get that last playoff seed at fourth, and the Surfers were able to secure that with about a game left in hand. So there was nothing, yesterday's games, there was nothing left to play for other than the Cats could have forfeited 2 if they had lost and not got any points from their game against the Bashers. But they did win that game going away. I think the final score was 7-3. They were 7-0. I was watching the game. It was 7-0 for most of the game. Johnny Garbage got some late hat-trick prowess going on with some vintage goal. He had some good snipes, a couple of tap-ins there for him, so he's able to finish off the season on a high note for him personally. But a downer for the Dune Bashers in general, as they failed to make the playoffs. But having said that, we were in a position to possibly supplant the Cats in number 2. And a lot happened during the week, and while I was away, we're going to segue into what
it grinds my gears. My gears.
I was a little bit on the fence whether or not I was going to actually address this topic, but I think it makes for good television. So here we go. We had a chance to possibly win second seed. We had a game versus the Kings last week in which we had legal subs. So I think you guys get the idea. We talked about this sub issue the whole year. So I think by now a lot of people know how it works. That you're missing some guys, and you go below 10. You can pick up any guys to make your 10, but you have to be below 10 to pick up any in particular sub to make 10. So, and usually teams will pick up players to replace their top end players. So, having said that, we were missing some players, particularly Peter Gagior, who's been out for most of the season with a back injury for us. So, if we're below 10, we could pick up a second rounder for Peter. So, we picked up Charles, who's a second rounder himself. And I think the next available sub on our list was me. I was out, and I was a 5th rounder. So he can pick up a 2nd rounder and a 5th rounder to compensate for me and Peter being out. So I think Will wasn't quite sure where the 2 subs ranked. He knew Chuck, because Chuck was on the team. But he picked up Aziz Al-Farouk. Is that how you pronounce it? Al-Farouk. Yeah. Aziz plays for the Cat Oryx, so he's not on a team. Cat Oryx is sitting it out this season, so he's a sub from the Oryx. Will picked him up. I'm not quite sure where he was ranked. He ended up being ranked at 4, so he can't.
He was a pleasure to play with too.
So he
It
can't.
was good having you out on the ice.
Yeah. So if Aziz subs for me, that's an illegal sub because I'm a 5th rounder. He's considered a 4th rounder. So therefore, that's an illegal sub. The problem being is this has to be agreed upon in jest. That's how we always did this. The captains agreed to the subs. If there's any discrepancies, it has to be addressed, or at least I thought it had to be. I don't know. In this case, the game went on. We played the game. We won the game with our subs, but we had an illegal sub apparently. It wasn't called on us until after the game. That's my issue. I don't have a problem with it being a legal sub, but it has to be in the tradition of how we do things, and we've done it in the past. This should have been handled before we took to the ice to play the game. You can't cry over spilled milk once you play the game and say, "Oh, I think it was illegal sub, so now we're going to bring it up." So Nathaniel brought it up after the fact, which is ironic because Nathaniel kind of avails of the sub rule the most. He benefits the most from it. His team, the
Like
Oil
a
Kings,
maestro.
the whole year. And I don't begrudge that. Like that's the rules. If you're missing players, which the Kings miss, we've analyzed this in nausea the whole season, that the Kings would have to avail of the subs to keep on their winning streak, to get the most points, and they have. And within the confines of how we have the sub rules, Nathaniel has done a great job, and we knew that would be the case. Which is ironic that he would bring it up that Will had an illegal sub. Like I said, I'll get back to it. Yes, within the confines of the rules, Aziz was not supposed to sub for me unless the captain of the other team agrees to it at the beginning of the game. The captain of the other team did not disagree with it before the beginning of the game, which lends me to say sour grapes after the game. So I don't think it should ever have been raised after the game. If it was a concern, it should have been raised to Will. And there lies in the problem. This year, the captains, I don't think, have done a good job communicating with each other. It's like, okay, you have the subs, but nobody talks about it. And if you have an issue, you have to bring it up before the game. That's a gentleman's rule. So that's my issue. You can agree with me, or you can disagree with the rules, or you can disagree with my take. This is how I interpreted the last 10
If we were
years
allowed
I've
to
been playing.
use the change rooms, this would be board fodder. This would be up there on the whiteboard for sure. This
Well,
would
it's
be
almost, and then
I'm talking about you and the how the Kings would be
right.
reacting
I mean,
to it.
and
We're getting
then
fired up.
I mean, I don't know. I kind of gathered from some banter and some threads on WhatsApp that it was brought up after the fact, and that the Kings had no skin in the game because they'd already secured number 1. Yes, they did, but it was after the fact that it came to the realization that I think Nathaniel realized that it affected the Cats. If the Cats, were able to secure number 2, well, we were able to jump them if we go by this sub rule and won that game. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Grinds my gears,
It does.
Greg.
It's
Grinds
an axe.
my gears.
It's an I do. I wouldn't be being true to myself if I just ate it. I don't think in the confines of sportsmanship that it was right, and consequently, as it plays out, the Cats did, in fact, get number 2 by their virtue of their win yesterday, 2 points ahead of us. But if we had those 2 points early in the week, that game against the Kings, we would have been tied, and the Heat would have won the tiebreaker from head to head.
Which, in the grand scheme of things, means we get to pick the goalie for.
So there was
one
something
half
on the
of it.
line. Like a lot of people will say, what difference does it make? You're playing 2 and 3. Like, okay, you still have to play the game. Well, within the confines of our league, the goalies.
Get you fired up.
The goalies will dictate terms of the game sometimes if they're not evenly matched. So what happens what's the one advantage that you have as home team if you're the number 2 seed on the third team? You get to pick the order of which goalie is going to play for you in the first half or the second half. So that's where it comes in, that there's an advantage for the Cats going into our semifinal tomorrow night.
Luckily, we play a
And-
sport and we get to decide it on the ice come Sunday's second game. All right, before we go into talking about the playoffs, things coming up, let's talk a little bit about Greg's separated at birth. These are who we think in this league.
So to keep it on, like we just went from maybe a lot of people, you interpret that as maybe me crying over spilled milk and a little bit of drama. That's fine. So we're going to keep it a little bit lighter now, and we're going to go with something that I've thought about.
To be fair, there's a couple we left off the list because we figured if we did post them, they might not go down so well. So these are...
So, I mean, go with something we talked about throughout the season, behind the scenes. This is a separated birth segment, and basically it's QIIHL celebrity lookalikes.
So first starting off, the El Jefe, the Jeff Agnew, and Justin Turner.
Yeah. We've got El Jefe, which sounds like a baseball name. Actually, El Jefe, right? It's straight out of Dominican.
I can see Agnew playing a little
Agnew's got
solid softball.
And Jeff, you probably, the picture will depict you as a ski buff, and it depicts Justin as just a happy-go-lucky baseball player, which he is for most part. Played with my Dodgers for a long time. Played with the Mets when he came in. Had a stint with Boston when LA traded him a couple of years ago, and I think now he's playing with the Blue Jays. So I'm interested to see what everyone thinks on if we get thumbs up.
We might have to make this a category of the Queasies and have it in which one do you think's the closest.
Agnew and Justin
Johnny
Turner.
Meyer and Joe Pavelski. I definitely see that one. Yeah,
I stumbled onto that one.
I don't think it's the strongest, but it's
stumbled onto that. I watched a Dallas Stars game, and those of you who know me, I kind of have this penchant for lookalikes. Like, you know, some people are like, what's wrong with Gregor? He's always thinking about who so and so looks like. Anyway, it's entertainment. And I saw Joe Pavelski sitting on the bench, taking a swig of his water bottle, spitting out and doing his tape job or whatever. And it came to mind, I said, he looks like someone in the queue. And then I started to look at some of the pictures and the profiles that we had in our database. And it didn't take me long. I said, he's the finance director of ASD.
That's right.
He's John Mayer. So John Mayer and Joe Pavelski, I think that's a good separated birth. So what do we have next?
And then we got Jimmy and Jim. What's his name?
So this is a bit obscure. We've got Jim Carrick. So it's a little obscure in the sense that us over here as expats, we really don't get mainstream TV that much, network TV. So this is a show that my kids and my wife watch. And it's called Lone Star 911. It's a rescue show about firehouses and all this stuff. And I think Rob Lowe is the main actor in it. He plays the chief of the house. And this character actor or supporting actor, Jim Carrick, is the actor's name. And I think this might be our best. Jim Carrick and Jimmy McInnes.
There's one coming up that I think
both like these guys there could have been an egg split somewhere, right? Or somebody's semen was frozen and it got misplaced, and they're roughly the same age. If you Google Jim Carrick and you Google Jimmy McInnes in our league, I think you'll see around the same age. I'm not quite sure same year, but it's very good separated at birth, I think.
So the next one's me and Michael Bisping and the UFC
the Count. Isn't he known as the Count?
The Count, yeah, and he's got like one eye, but him and I like about 5 or 10 years ago. It was pretty like wow.
So
I've had people come up to me before and be like, "Are you Michael Bisping?
You're about the same size."
Yeah, he's
lighter than you though.
Well, he fought at 185, yeah, but he was like we're about the same height, like 6'2" and stuff. But fighters don't. I mean, he fights at 185. He walks around the same weight as me.
And he's very controversial. I wouldn't call Beggs particularly controversial, but
Keith Loader might have something to say about that after I laid him out. Apologies, Loader. I'm sorry again. I'm sorry about that.
But Michael Bisping, I don't know. I haven't watched MMA a lot, but I did watch it a bit when he was actively fighting, and he was very controversial. He had his supporters, but he had his detractors as well. So I think Beggs has got it with Michael Bisping, the cauliflower ears.
His is bigger than mine.
Ruggedly handsome look. I think maybe that's a
well,
good.
the next three get real. So
That's
we've got
a good match. So
this
what do
has
we got
been before.
next?
Edvard and Brock Purdy.
Oh, this is good.
I mean, I don't know if it's the picture or whatever, but oh my!
If you Google both, like if you Google both of them and then Google more pictures,
Yeah.
you will find more pictures and it might be a personal preference. You might say, well, he looks more like him here, but we did the best we could. But Brock Purdy, the 49ers
But in my
quarterback,
opinion,
and
as strong as this one is,
Edward.
oh my goodness, a young Hayes and a young George
So-
Clooney.
so it's no secret that I've coined Hayes Clooney, Nathaniel Hayes. I've coined Nathaniel George Clooney in the early days when he got here. Like he was fresh off the boat, working at ASD, little less gray hair, but here's the key: it's the salt and pepper evolution
Catching up, right?
of Nathaniel and George Clooney. It's parallel. If you look at their careers at the same age, like I think Hayes is like maybe 35 and George now is 60, early
Something like
60.
that, yeah.
But if you Google George Clooney at 35 and Nathaniel now, or both of them at 30, which I think the picture that will probably pop up here is roughly both of them at the same. It might have Clooney a little. It might have actually Nathaniel at a little maybe younger than George is in the picture, but the similarities are uncanny.
Yeah.
So
And then the last one,
that's what we have there.
Thaddeus and Hugh Jackman, which I can
yes.
see. This is also a strong
We have
one.
Thaddeus Wrestler, who plays for the Cats, and we have Hugh Jackman, who's basically the Wolverine, as you know him in the Wolverine movies and other movies. This is pretty good as well. I think both of those guys. It's the same. By the same token, it's an age difference. Thaddeus is roughly around late 30s. I'm thinking. Jackman is my age, maybe 54, 55, I think. But if you Google them at the same age at one point in time, like if you look at Hugh's picture when he was 35, late 30s, and Thaddeus now, basically there's big time similarities there. So. That's what we have for. Was there anyone else?
That's them. And so what we're gonna do at the end of this video, we're gonna have the queasies posted of all the different things for the queasies. We'll include this as one of them. But we're gonna have the queasies, and we'll do it sometime at the end of the season wrap up or something like that. And we'll announce queasies. Queasies are things like silkiest mitts, who's homeless when they show up at the rink, all kinds of things like that.
And
Okay, so now let's move on to the playoffs. What's gonna happen? What's your predictions? Who do you think? So. It looks like, now this is not, we know how it works, and it looks like the first game is going to be McNair and either Zuzu or Sandro, based on, so I don't know the sign up, and Dean's going to be reffing the second game alongside Zuzu, I think it looks like.
So,
And
so
that's
is
it.
it.
And the first game is the Oil Kings against the Surfers, and then the second game is us against Cats. You know what? I'm even going to be fancy. I'm going to look up and I'll put the head-to-head records up on this thing before we go in.
So you say it's Brent McNair and Sandro doing
It might
the first game.
might change. Like this is all that's going on with the
Well, I
rest,
mean,
but because they're
at
trying
the-
to get bashers, so they're not.
At the end of the day, is it gonna is I mean, I don't know. Like Mark, I'm not gonna try and like throw you under the bus, Mark Haddad. You've been one of the refs that's been a constant in the league, and you've moved on. But you've kind of had an integral part in like whether or not you had anything to do with the outcomes of games. Sometimes the teams would not be in favor of your reffing style, even though it's as high acumen, know what you're doing. Sometimes it might have impacted the teams going in how they thought the game would unfold. I'll just leave it at that, and to a positive thing and to a negative thing. So, within the confines of our refs for the league, I don't think it means a row of beans who's doing the games. You got to play the games. There's going to be calls. There's going to be calls you disagree with.
I was going to say, to be fair, Jim McInnes McNair both have had some opinions about my reffing from time to time.
Right. I
so
mean, you're going to miss
you.
you're going to miss calls. You're not robots. So the best thing you can do is do your best. So at the end of the day, the team that adjusts best to what the refs are calling or not calling, and they play their own game and they don't get down, and are able to with intestinal fortitude strive and
so what do you
win the game.
so the way it works is teams are not allowed to have their any subs. It's got to be the guys you drafted can play in the games in the playoffs. And it's kind of big because there's 2 semifinals and there's a one shot, and then you play a best of 3 finals. So you got to win this to get into it. So both teams, and historically in the league, there's been a lot of 4th place teams or teams that barely squeak in. Even when they had like 6 and they've made it to the final. So it's by no means they've won the finals and they've made it. Like there's one game anything can happen, especially if you got guys missing or whatever. What's your predictions? What are you calling, Greg? These 2 games.
Oh, I'm not like we talked about this before. I'm not gonna pull a Mark Messier and guarantee victory for the Heat against the Cats. I mean, I think if you look at the season combatants or head-to-head season for us with the Cats and the Heat, it's pretty even. There's not much to choose from. I think when we did win, though, we were probably subject. The Cats were subject to losing some guys. Or missed integral part of their team, and we were able to pick up subs, at least one sub to help us out. Peter being out most of the year, well, all of the year, sometimes we were able to pick up a sub for Peter, and if that was against the Cats, I think those times we did come out on the winning end. But what I will predict in our semi-final matchup against the Cats, it will be a hotly contested game. It will be competitive, and in the infamous words of Clubber Lang when he was asked about his matchup against Rocky Balboa in Rocky 3, what do you think, Clubber, about the match? How's it going to go? He said, pain. So
it's going to be a close one. It's going to depend on some guys who haven't been playing much how they're playing. This will be the first time in a while that we haven't had subs or have had full rosters, so it'll be interesting to see how that all adjusts out. But looking forward to it.
So what about? I'm not going to make a prediction, but we're going to give it all we got on our side, and I'm sure the Cats will as well. Hopefully, the best team wins. And here come the Heat now.
And Surfers Kings. Is that the
Surfers and Kings?
Is that going to be one of those big surprise?
I think this has the makings of the year-long conundrum of, are the Kings going to have enough players? Now, Mr. Hayes is probably laughing at me, knowing full well what he has, that he has his top echelon of players, or at least 3. And that's maybe all he needs is 3. But if he has to go with 7 is the number. I think 8 can get it done. But if he has to go with 7, no matter if it's him.
You really think they're gonna have that much trouble getting guys?
Well, I don't think.
I think they're gonna have their.
No, they could. 10, they could possibly be without 6 in a 14.
They had a big team. I mean, they had a big team. They didn't have their top guys. They had a big team against us.
I know that Peter Kristanix which is their top forward. I'm thinking. I think Peter will make the game. I think he told me he was in for the first game. He may miss the first game of the semi or the finals if they win tomorrow. He may miss the first game of that, but he's in for the semi-final game tomorrow. That means that at least him, Hayes, and Bentz will be there. So any combination thereof after that, as long as they have 8, I think 7 is tough. If those 3, and then you don't have Pados, you don't have Yuri, even if you have Jay and you have Nolan, but you only have 8. 8 is if you have 8, I think it can get done. But if the Kings do not have 8 and they have to go with 7, too much will be asked of Mr. Hayes and Bentz on the back end to play the whole game. I know they can do it, but against a team that is going to be well motivated
And
as
I feel
the
like
underdog.
the Surfers are, when they have their best and they're playing their best, are a very, very
And
dangerous good team.
I heard this through the rumor mill that
And it's the playoffs.
Mr. Simon Graham, who's been out nursing a knee injury, I heard rumblings of him coming back
Saucy.
from the, I don't know, I mean, if he's had a torn ACL, MCL, that's a tall task to come back from that to play a rec playoff game, right? It's not like...
But it does matter.
You have to save your kids from a burning fire or something. Like, if you have a torn ACL and you're playing a rec, I don't know, like, maybe...
Come on, Greg. If it was a final, it would be, you would Willis Reed that all day long. If it was you in the finals of a game, they'd have to have a tranquilizer.
I would.
If it's a final game, they'd be
I would, but I'm not sure that everyone would.
Yeah, your wife would have to be standing there with a, you are,
You know,
wrapping
so
up, get them.
we'll see what happens. I think though they will have a full squad, which means they may go to a short bench. Yarko, you could do that. You could go to a short bench because Mr. Hayes is going to have a short bench, so you could very well go short bench if you feel if it's aptly needed. Like, you don't have to wait until you're down. You can do an executive decision and say, I'm going short bench, and go with your top 10 and let the chips fall as they may. Let's see. Anyway, I think I'll make a prediction. If the Kings can ice a team with 8 or more, they will win. If it's 7 or less, they lose.
No, let's wait and see, and it's going to be exciting. We'll try and get some. Should we have a post after this, another one before we start of the actual playoff finals? I kind of think that's got to happen, right? Like, we should have
yeah, I
something,
think maybe we
maybe
should
at the rink
segue
afterwards
into
or something.
We can, if we have enough time, to probably get together again and do a finals show.
And if we're not in it, we can maybe do something a little more. But we plan on being in it.
So, yeah,
right.
We'll see what happens tomorrow.
On that note,
best teams. Keep your head up. Stick on the ice.
see you out there, boys. The
Good old
hockey game. It's the best game you can name. And the best game you can name. Good stuff.